Hello Flosstube friends. Today's video, I thought we'd do something a little bit different. It's not going to be a stitch with me video per se, but I will be talking about cross stitch kits, in particular Mill Hill kits. Even if you've never stitched a Mill Hill kit, you've probably come across these either at your local needlework shop or here on Flosstube. I know that in many of my videos, mostly, especially this year, I'm talking a lot about samplers, I'm stitching on linen, but actually the first pieces that I ever cross-stitched were on perforated paper, which is the material that's included in these Mill Hill kits, and I have stitched dozens of these kits. So for those who have not purchased a Mill Hill kit, or for those of you who have them but haven't actually gone through them yet, I will kind of go through what's included in a kit. We'll talk about the different supplies and my process. We're gonna have some perforated paper talk. And then after that, I will show you, I'll go through all of the Mill Hill kits that I have completed, and I will provide the names of those kits so that if you're interested in looking them up and stitching them for yourself, you can do that. But I thought for today's video, I would choose a smaller kit. These Mill Hill kits, they come in two different sizes. You'll have small ornament or magnet kits like this, that size, and then you'll also find that they make larger kits this size. Now, the difference between the completed projects isn't necessarily very great, but the things like these Santas, there are tons of these Santas that they make, the included materials, there's just a lot more to it. And then of course the piece of perforated paper is bigger and you can't fold that, so necessarily the packaging has to be bigger. But today we're gonna go through this kit because I kind of want to go through it anyway, and also it doesn't have a ton of colors, but I'll show you what's included. So you'll find that all the Mill Hill kits come in these little plastic baggies. It's great because they are resealable and you can actually use this as a silly little project bag, honestly, because you can just put everything back in here while you're working on it, if you haven't completed it yet. So you find that each kit has a color photo on the front, and all the instructions always say, consult the chart, the pattern, not the photo, because every once in a while they have a mistake in the model or something. But the instructions come on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Even for the larger charts, that's what the instructions come on in the chart. And so you'll find that one side has general stitching instructions, general beading, talks a little bit about perforated paper and the needles that are included. And then on the other side, you have the chart, and I'll just show just a little bit of that there. It also gives you a stitch and bead diagrams. This is really great for beginners. I had somebody recently reach out to me on Instagram asking for a recommendation on a kit for a beginner. And I told her that I would absolutely recommend Mill Hill kits. For one thing, everything that you need is included, including the needles. And if she wants a small, easy to follow chart, Mill Hill kits are great. And if she decides the perforated paper is not for her, this easily translates to linen and Aida. All of the Mill Hill kits are meant to be stitched on this 14 count perforated paper. That means there are 14 holes per inch, which means that you could easily stitch the same design with the same outcome with the same beads on 14 count Aida and 28 count linen. And I have actually seen photos online of people taking materials from Mill Hill kits, stitching them on linen, and they look absolutely gorgeous. I love the finish that I get with the perforated paper because it is actually something that I can fully finish myself. I don't have to send it out. I don't need any special skills to do this, and I will talk about that a little bit later. But each kit comes with a piece of perforated paper. It usually comes with, most of the kits come with this craft brown, which I really love. I think it's a great neutral. It goes with everything. All of the colors that you're gonna get in any of the kits, they pop nicely on this craft brown. But if you wish to purchase perforated paper in a different color, they have white, ecru, black, gold, red, and they may have a couple others. In one of my videos, one of my Flosstube videos, and I think it's episode number 24, I will look that up for you guys. But in one of my Flosstube episodes, I actually talked about staining this material, because you can do that. I just used some black, some super black Speedball calligraphy ink, and used a paper towel to dip that in the ink, and then kind of rubbed it around this because I wanted kind of an antique-y black look. I stitched a design, a Teresa Koga design on it, and then I was able to easily mount that to a wooden piece specifically designed for that cross stitch piece, and the wooden piece came from Chantal 141. But as I say, I will link that specific Flosstube episode in which I discuss all that and the process there. I'll link that below, so if you guys are interested, you can go check that out. But basically, perforated paper, craft brown, standard, nice color, easy to use. Okay, also included are going to be your threads, beads, needles, and a magnet, if that's included. Some kits come with magnets, some kits don't. The kits that are meant to be ornaments obviously do not come with magnets. Many of the kits come with some kind of treasure or a little crystal bead or something. So this one comes with 3 little red crystals. We've got another pack of beads here. Now you'll notice that there is more than one color bead in this bag, and there's more than one color bead in this bag, but they separate them so that while I've got kind of a reddish color bead in here, kind of a reddish color bead in here, it'll be easy for me to figure out which beads I need when the time comes. I use small little ceramic bowls to put my beads in. I don't dump them all together. I'll use as many bowls as there are bags provided in the kit. That's just something that I like to do. But there are other products that you can use if you like, such as it's like a sticky mat, and it kind of comes in oddly enough, comes in what looks like an old CD case, like that plastic flip open case. And it has like a sticky surface. You can dump your beads on there. They don't go anywhere, and you can pick them up with your needle. I've never used those. I don't really feel the need to do that. I don't mind using small little bowls, chase the beads around the bowls with your needles. I don't mind that. Now you'll notice here that you get both oh my gosh, this feels like a pitchfork, to quote Brenda. I have been stitching samplers all year. Is this gonna focus? Stitching samplers all year using size 28 petite needles, and so this thing feels absolutely huge. This is the needle that is included for your stitching. This is the needle that is included for beading. So you can see they give you 2 very different size needles. Even before I started stitching on linen and using different needles, let's see if this is gonna focus. There we go. Even before I started stitching on linen, I should say, when I would stitch these Mill Hill kits, I would always use the beading needle for everything, because that way I could bead as I went. The instructions, I'm not gonna read the instructions completely. You guys can go through that if you like, but the instructions often say to do just the cross stitches with the larger needle and then go back and add the beads with the beading needle. I find, for me, it is more efficient to bead as I go. So that's what I choose to do. Also, if you use the beading needle instead of the larger needle, it is easier to secure your threads on the back of the perforated paper when you're done with a particular color. The perforated paper, you don't want to bend it too much, and you want to secure those threads on the back as easily as possible so that you're not putting any extra stress on this paper, because while it is thicker than cardstock, it's not much thicker than cardstock. Another thing that I would recommend doing when you're working with this paper is that you wash and dry your hands thoroughly before you start working on it. And then if you notice that your hands get a little damp, sweaty, whatever it may be, that you take a break, wash and dry your hands thoroughly, and then come back to it. So that way you're not adding too much extra moisture, because of course, if you moisten paper, it becomes more susceptible to ripping, tearing, whatever. And actually, I have accidentally torn this paper before. It happens. It's just something that comes with it. All right, so now our threads, you can see they came in a nice little bundle, but I have taken them out, of course. The threads here, they give you what they call that, you know, the names that they're given. And then they do actually provide the DMC floss number. So if you have a color, you know, you have a couple colors and you can't decide, well, which one is red and which one is medium red, you can consult the floss number. And if you have a pretty good DMC stash, you might actually have it in your stash and then you can compare directly. Or if you have one of those DMC cards, you can use that to compare. Or if you just want to run to your local needle workshop or craft store, you can always check this out there. But I've never had a major problem. I've always been able to figure out what the colors are. So if you see, you've got medium red, dark green, light gray, dark red, medium brown, very dark brown, light red, and medium green. Well, that's what we get for stitching a pine cone, right? There's a lot of browns involved, a couple reds, and a couple greens. It does look like the greens here, you know, we've got some pine needles and then a little bit of beading. I'm not gonna worry too much about getting those greens right. I don't think it really matters. The red should be pretty obvious because we've got a red bow with some shading in it, that's fine. I think the most important thing that we have to worry about is going to be the gray and the browns. So what I would normally do is I would try to separate the flosses into color families. So this looks like it's most of our reds. It looks like we got another red here, kind of a burgundy color. So I'm gonna separate those. Okay, so I've got all those reds together. And then our greens. I do see 2 greens, and I believe that's what we had listed. We've got a dark green and a medium green. So easy enough to find those. And then what I'll do is I'll just wrap them around and make a nice little coil, stick that there. And when I'm ready to get to those greens, I suspect the greens are going to be the last thing I do. So we won't need those anytime soon. Okay, now what we have left are the browns and the single gray, right? Okay, we've got light gray, medium brown, very dark brown, light brown. Okay, so let me kind of get those sorted in my head. Light gray, and then we've got a light brown, a medium brown, very dark brown. Okay, so let's try to find the gray. I think this is our gray. Looks pretty gray to me. Now, many of you have maybe a floss organizer, one of those little wooden blocks that has a bunch of holes in it. You can use something like that. You can also make one if you just have some cardstock and a hole punch. You can do that. It's one way to organize your floss. But you could also put these in floss away bags. I know people do that. Honestly, this is the system that I use because I have been stitching mill hill kits since I was a kid. I didn't have floss organizers and I didn't have project bags. I just had this little plastic bag, and so wherever I was in the project, if I wasn't done, I'd have to wrap up all the floss that I have going, stick it back in the bag. So this is what I usually end up with, is I usually end up with color families wrapped into coils like this, and they get shoved back in the bag when I'm not working on it. Okay, so I see now I do have, now a good thing here, a little hint that they give you, this 2 in parentheses, that means they've given you 2 lengths of that color. They didn't always do this. This is relatively new. This is something that they started doing within the last like 8 or 10 years or something that I've noticed, because when I was a kid, you know, they would have half a dozen, maybe a dozen colors or something in a single package. And yeah, it would have been nice. It would have been very helpful if they said that this particular gray you have 4 strands of, because it would have easily identified that particular color. But here we go. Very dark brown, light brown, those both have 2 lengths, and then the medium brown and dark brown, just the 1 length. So anything, it looks like this we have 2 of. Okay. And this looks like the very dark brown, and we do have 2 of those. And then the light brown, we have 2 of these. So I'm going to kind of put them, arrange them in color. So very dark and then light. So we've got medium and dark still to go. And these are easily distinguishable. You can tell right off the bat, 2 different colors. One is lighter than the other. So easy peasy. I have read comments online about people having problems separating flosses. They can't tell one color from the other. Sometimes you do end up with a bunch of colors in one family, like you'll have 5 or 6 greens, and you have to parse through and determine what's very light green, what's light green, what's light yellow green, whatever it may be. And it can be very frustrating. So as I say, they give you all the DMC numbers. If you really need to, you can consult, you can check online, you can go to your local shop, or if you have a stash of your own, you can consult there and find out which is which. So I have separated the browns, which, as I say, I think would be the colors that I would stitch first, considering what our project is. Probably going to stitch, I don't even know what to call the parts of the pine cone. I guess I should have looked that up, but the piney bits. I don't even know. But I think I would stitch the grays and browns first. Then obviously you would go over everything, go over with the green when that's done, and then the red I could do at any time. Okay, that's what we have. And then looks like we've got, I do think we have a couple different size beads as well. So down here you'll see they actually give you the Mill Hill bead number. So if you lose any beads or you want to stitch this project again, but you don't want to have to buy an additional kit, you've got some leftovers, you've got your own perforated paper stash, whatever it may be, you want to stitch it on linen, you can do that. They tell you exactly what you need. So, and then another thing that they do here is you'll see there are four different beads there on the list. You've got ruby, satin stone, petite red, petite green velvet. Now the stone and the velvet, that kind of refers to the finish of the bead. That can help you when you're kind of separating beads and you're trying to find the right one, because some of these kits do have a lot of beads. This kit only has 4 different beads, so it's not that hard to get through. But you see the asterisk next to ruby and next to petite green velvet. It says these beads are together in one bag. All other beads are together in a second bag. So it tells you that the ruby and the petite green velvet, these are together in this bag. And then the satin stone and petite red, these are together in this bag. So it makes it easy. So I am all ready to get started if I want to. And I guess the next thing to do would be to consult my chart, which in this case is so small that it fits up here on the top half of the paper. Very easy. So if you've never done a Mill Hill kit before, I would really recommend them. If you like stitching and you want something, maybe you always require magnification or good lighting, this is something that you can do even in the car. You can do it while you're waiting at a doctor's office or something. You can do it when you don't have your stitchy spot and all of your accessories with you. I find they're very easy, very portable, and they have tons of designs. And on that note, I think I'm going to go ahead and put this stuff away, and I'll show you all of the Mill Hill kits that I have completed so far. All right, the first little kit that I'm going to start off with is this tiny little gingerbread girl. I stitched this when I was a kid, And I don't even think they make this kit anymore. I'm not sure, and I don't remember the name of it. I don't have any of the packaging or the pattern left. As I say, this is something that I did a long time ago. We're talking about more than 20 years ago. But she's really cute, and I have slapped a magnet on the back, and she lives on my fridge all year long. Now, you'll see on the back, you can see my exposed stitches. I didn't put any paper or felt or anything here. Since I have started stitching into adulthood, I have recognized the need to put something on the back here just to give it a little more stability and to protect the integrity of the paper, because, you know, these can become, I don't know, bent, whatever it may be. And I have a couple other magnets on the fridge that are just as old as this one, and they're definitely falling apart. And I'm considering just taking photos of them and restitching them and properly backing the piece after it's done. But there's no getting that magnet off now to put paper on. So if I need to, what I could do is take some Mod Podge or something and kind of glue around the magnet if I really wanted to. But she doesn't get moved a lot. I only actually touched her for the first time in several years just to take her off for this video. So I'll put her over here to the side. Super cute. You might be able to find this kit on eBay, because every once in a while I do see vintage Mill Hill kits come up on eBay, and they're often in a lot of however many. So, all right, the rest of these are pieces that I have stitched much more recently. We're talking within the last decade. This first group is the Angels series put out by Mill Hill, I don't know how many years ago, but we have Angelina, SERAPHINA, and GABRIELLE. And you'll notice that a couple of them have Krynic. You'll see on Gabrielle's musical instrument here, she's got Krynic. These are long strands. They're not couched down. They're not stitched in segments. Long strands of Krynic. I have a little bit of experience now stitching with Krynic. I still don't love it, but I love the effect it gives on a finished piece. I mean, it sparkles like nothing else, and it looks really great. Another thing to be aware of with these angels is that the eyes are actually stitched using French knots. It was a little tricky to get, but I think the finished effect is really nice. So I love these finished pieces. And every year I put them on my tree. I can't decide which angel is my favorite. Sometimes she's my favorite. Sometimes it's this one. You know, sometimes it's SERAPHINA. I have no idea, but I love them all. I couldn't stitch one without the others, so they are all completed. And then I will show you how I have finished the backs. Now, easy enough. I had some embossed gold tone scrapbook paper. It's a very thick, very stiff. I bought several sheets all at once because I knew that this is what I wanted to use for all the Christmas ornaments that I was going to make for our family. And it has worked really well. I actually should have bought more, but I have enough to get me through several more ornaments. But basically I just have this paper, and I lay the finished Mill Hill, you know, the finished ornament, the finished stitched piece out on the paper after I've cut it out. Carefully cut around all the stitching, be careful. And lay it out, trace it, cut out the paper, and do any additional trimming that you may need to do. And then just glue it down with a clear acid-free glue. And before you secure everything, you just cut length of cord or ribbon or whatever it may be that you want to use as a hanger. Stick that in there. That's it. So very easy finishing process. This is what I was talking about when I say this is something that I can do myself. I don't have to learn a new skill, and I don't have to send it out. So very economical actually, because these Mill Hill kits are pretty inexpensive. Even these larger kits, the Santa kits, the Angels kits, the whole kit is less than $20. So you can make an ornament, a full size, a very nicely sized, beautiful ornament for less than $20. It does take quite a bit of time. I would anticipate that pine cone ornament only taking me 2 days to finish, but these angels, I mean, they each took a week, and that's stitching nothing else for the week. So it is time commitment, and it may be difficult to put down your other projects, but the effect you get from a tree covered in sparkly male hill ornaments is really wonderful. Now I'll show you what is probably my favorite series, ironically enough, the Wiseman series. I don't know how old this series is, probably over 10 years old, but you've got all three of them. So we have Melchior, and then we have Balthasar. And Balthasar, I mean, they're all so beautiful, so colorful. But Balthasar always makes me giggle because I think about Christmas Joy, that episode of Psych where Gus's sister's on. And she says, I thought everybody knew about Balthasar. And I love that. But I do love that piece. And then we have Gaspar here. And they just look brilliant together. Just bright purples, golds, blues, absolutely gorgeous. And each one of these came with some sort of treasure, although I'm only seeing treasure on 2 of them. So maybe Balthasar didn't come with a treasure, I'm not sure. But you can see this here. That crystal there, so pretty, really adds to it. I mean, so much beading in these. So surely this kit, the beads are separated into 3 or 4 bags. I don't know, just because you have so many. You have at least half a dozen different color beads, different finishes and things. But I just love this series. Really beautiful. So again, this is Melchior, Balthasar, and Gaspar. And again, finish them the same way. This cording is just something that I bought at Michael's. I bought probably 2 or 3 spools of it so that I knew I would have enough. It is an ivory with a gold twist, and I thought it would look good with all of my ornaments because the metal, I guess I would say, I picked for my color scheme is gold. Like I veer more toward yellow gold than I do toward silver or platinum or anything like that. Okay, so next I've got a buttload of Santas we will talk about. And we're going to start with this series here. I have notes to my left. I want to be able to give you guys all of the names in case you may not want the full series. You may just want one in particular. I want to make sure I give you the right names. Now, this particular trilogy is called the Renaissance Santas, or Renaissance. Ryan and I were talking about this because Renaissance is one of those words that I really want to say Renaissance, but if you say it like that, you sound like a tool. So the Renaissance Santas. This one is Genoa. This one is Venice, and you see he has little scales, and surely this one is named for the Merchant of Venice. And then this one is Florence. He's got a little painting. And I remember stitching this one. I stitched this one, I think in 2021, and I hated it with a passion. I was so glad when this one was done. I remember stitching this painting and just thinking it was absolutely the worst thing I had ever done in my life. I don't know why. I love the completed series. I love the trilogy here. They all look so nice together. But for some reason, this guy, he was not fun. Florence was giving me tons of problems. But very nice. And you can see these Santas, they all have different fun beards. A lot of them use turkey stitch to achieve the little fringy bits here down at the bottom. And then for the mustache, what you will often do is in your hand, make a little bow with floss, and then you will trim it and tack it down onto his face when you're done. So actually when I came, kind of moved over to stitching on linen, and I came across something called a turkey stitch, and I saw, people were talking about how complicated it was and how difficult it was to achieve properly. And then I started reading about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've done that. I've done that so much because I've made so many Santa beards. And they all look different. They all look great. And you can have fun with it. Like you can make your Santa's beard longer or shorter depending on what you like, but you do need to put a little bit of something, a little bit of beardiness here because he hasn't got much on his face underneath. But again, do whatever you think is best. You can follow the directions, do it exactly, but if it's not exactly as the picture, that's okay. Okay, so saying goodbye to the Renaissance Santas. Now we have the medieval Santas. We have these. I love these ones. I remember these ones being fun. And I also love the color scheme. We've got a lot of jewel tones here. I think it's very Christmassy. Not, you know, medieval Santas. Is medieval anything necessarily Christmassy? No. But the jewel tones are wonderful. So this guy is Avignon. Avignon. This is, let me get this right. This is Saxony. He's got a book. And then this is Canterbury. He has a scroll. So surely named for Canterbury Tales, right? Look at all those beautiful beads. This is part of a series called Celebration Santas. In this series, we have Merry Christmas Santa, which is this one. And then there are two others. There is a Joyeux Noël Santa and then a Feliz Navidad Santa. So Feliz Navidad Santa is wearing a poncho or serape and a sombrero. And then the Joyeux Noël Santa has a beret and he's holding a goose, which will presumably be dinner. So I have not stitched either of those. But this Merry Christmas Santa is just so classic. And you've got a little kitty cat, some presents, nice little tree. And I thought, of course, I had to stitch this one. So normally I would stitch all pieces in a series, but I wasn't really feeling the Feliz Navidad Santa and the Joyeux Noël Santa. It's very cute, but I figured I really just need this one out of the series. I think I do have those kits somewhere, but I haven't pulled them out. Okay, next we have Arctic Circle Santas. This is the Lapland Santa. He's got a reindeer with him. This is the Greenland Santa with a sheep. And presumably he made this sweater from this sheep or another sheep like it. They're all the same color. And then we have the NUNAVUT Santa. This one, I mean, this is a lot of white stitching, You've got just like 2 or 3 different colors of white. This is a great example of a Mill Hill kit that is hard. You know, the colors, the floss that are included are hard to separate because you've got like white and very light gray and maybe off-white as well. I'm not sure. But basically the thing to know is that if you don't get every color in exactly the right spot, it really doesn't matter as long as your finished product is something that you're happy with. So does it matter that, you know, I've got a gray stitch here and it was really supposed to be over here? No, it really doesn't matter. I'm just glad the darn thing's done because there was so much white stitching. So much white stitching. But again, you gotta have all 3. Look how cute they are together with all their different animals. I like the Santa trilogies that have little animals with them. Some of them do, some of them don't. And I'll show you some newer kits that I have that I haven't quite gotten to that have animals that I'm excited about. All right, next I will show you the Timberline Santas. Speaking of animals, we have, this is Douglas fir, and oh my goodness, look at that little bunny. It's so cute. And we've got a little bluebird up here. I had a lot of fun stitching these ones. I think the colors are great. I like the kind of blue-green that they use for the trees. And then I like the cobalt, like blue they have here. I like the stars that were on the scarf, on Santa's scarf here. He's got a jaunty little hat. Okay, this is Scotch pine. He has a cardinal friend and a big old tree. I remember Santa's coat was really fun to stitch. You've got this plaid pattern here that was really fun to stitch. The tree, not so much fun. But as I was stitching the tree and trying so hard to figure out where this bead goes next and where this stitch goes next, and then I told myself, Audrey, it's a tree. It really doesn't matter if it's not perfect because it's all a big jumbled green mess anyway. So once I came to that conclusion, it was a lot easier to stitch this. And really, you just have to look out for Santa's glove here because it's supposed to look like he's really holding on to the tree to prop it up. But the rest of it, it really doesn't matter. And as I say, the coat was really fun to stitch. He's got a little cardinal friend. It's so cute. This might look a little awkward with this big gap here, but I didn't want to cut too close around it because I wanted there to be some strength to the paper there. And so I don't mind that there's this gap here. Doesn't really matter to me. And this last one with our squirrel and bird friends, this is the Norway Spruce Santa. So different hat design, different coat, and he's already got a tree on a sleigh ready to go. But very cute. So this is a series that just came out, I don't know, within the last 8 or 10 years. And I was excited when they came out with this series. Every year, Mill Hill releases a new trilogy of Santas. They've been doing this for like 20 years now. I know that a lot of people talk about the Prairie Schooler Santas, the single Santa design that they release every year. I don't dislike the Prairie Schooler Santas, but I've never seen one that I thought, oh, I gotta stitch that. But I think it's because I've been spoiled by Mill Hill kits with all the beads. I love the beads and I love how they look under the twinkly lights on the Christmas tree. I really think they look great. So when they came out with this series, whenever it was, however many years ago, I just fell in love with it. More classic looking Santas with little woodland friends, bright red coats, and they look absolutely gorgeous on the Christmas tree. Next, probably seems a little odd, but we've got Seafaring Santas. Now they have a couple series of Santas that don't, well, more than a couple, that probably don't feel like they even look Christmassy at all. Like they feel like they probably wouldn't fit on anybody's Christmas tree. They've got these Seafaring Santas, they've got Jamestown Santas, but I mean, it's kind of like the Renaissance and the medieval Santas. Like, do they really fit necessarily? No, but if you like it, stitch it and put it on your tree. So here we have, this is Captain Santa. He's got a sextant. It's pretty cool. Now the thing about this is that you actually stitch the sextant separately and then attach it on top of the Santa that you've stitched. It gives it a little bit of dimension. And then he's got a crazy beard. I mean, he kind of looks like Bill Nye from Pirates, right? So, and then we've got Boatswain Santa, yeah, which is spelled boatswain, but it's Boatswain Santa. And he's got an anchor. Again, the anchor was stitched separately and then attached behind his hand and also in front of his boot here. So he's got a little bit of dimension going on. And he's also got this chain here that attaches to the anchor. I mean, these are so silly, but I had a lot of fun stitching them. Another crazy beard. And then we've got First Mate Santa. He's got a telescope. And again, stitched separately and attached. How did I do that? What did I do here? What is this? I don't know. But I keep all of my ornaments in rigid boxes with a lot of glass blown ornaments. So these are pretty well protected throughout the year. When they're not on display, they are carefully protected in sturdy boxes. But very cute series. I mean, this would be a good series to stitch if you have anyone in your life that, you know, likes boating, I guess, or was in the Navy. I like those. Okay. One last set of completed Santas to show you. These are the Celtic Santas. And I remember I stitched these in 2021. And I remember that because I had an office job and I was stitching in the office. And I only had a job for like a year and a half or something. So this is, let's see, this is Ireland Santa, it must be, because he's all green. You can see that. And then this is Wales Santa. He's covered in gold. I do know that there are gold mines in Wales. I remember reading something about maybe King Charles' wedding band, or maybe it was Prince William's wedding band that had actually been made of gold that had been mined in Wales. I'm not sure about that, but I know that they have gold in Wales. You know, things I remember from articles I read 20 years ago, who knows. And then this is Scotland Santa. really cool. Again, it was very fun to stitch this pattern on him, his tartan. Very cool. I like that series a lot. So these here are actually from two different series. There was a trilogy of antique locks and a trilogy of antique keys. Now they had let me get this right. I took notes, I did. Yes, they had a winter lock and key and an autumn lock and key and a spring lock and key. I didn't really care for the autumn and spring pieces, but the winter ones I thought were gorgeous. Again, lots of gold, and I love gold. It looks great on a tree, and I love the bright red ribbons. So I stitched these too. I remember I was stitching one of these in Las Vegas and hating life, but but I love the finished product. Love it. And these are really big. I mean, you can see how big they are compared to my hand. Very big. They look great on the tree. And again, just finished them with the paper on the back and simple cord loop. Very cute. Now this is a very old series called Holiday Harmony. I have stitched 5 of the designs that they have. There is also a 6th, it's a drum. I didn't stitch the drum just because I don't really care for it, but I stitched these 5 for our family, and then I have actually stitched duplicates of a few of them to give as gifts, because I can stitch one of these in about 2 days. And so I feel like it's not taking a lot of time out from my personal stitching, because honestly, I'm a very selfish stitcher. But it's nice to be able to give a handmade gift to somebody. So this is the violin. Now the pattern also comes with a bow, and you're supposed to stitch the bow and attach it kind of like the telescope, you know, or the anchor or anything. You're supposed to stitch it separately and attach it kind of behind the violin here. Well, I did stitch one bow, but I didn't bother attaching it because I thought it looked kind of awkward. And also because you have to put it behind enough of the violin so that it is secure, I felt like so much of the bow was obscured. And so I thought, well, really, what's the point? But maybe I will stitch this again and actually put the bow behind it. I don't know. But I think the violin is just fine how it is. I think it's gorgeous. I love these rich browns. And then again, the Kreinik, which is a pain in the butt to use, but looks absolutely stupendous on the finished product. I think it's kind of, these are so similar in my eye. I love them both. This is, what is this? The mandolin, I believe it's called. Maybe I like the violin just a little bit more just because the Kreinik pops off the black and the darker brown, but I don't know, they're both beautiful. And another thing about these kits is that they actually come with teeny tiny jingle bells that you can attach. I didn't bother attaching those either, but I think they look fine without them. So I still have all these extra little treasures that come with the pieces, even if I didn't attach them. I figure, well, maybe someday I'll find something to do with them, or I could actually put them on the thing that it was meant for. This is the trumpet. Very simple, but looks really pretty. And then this is the French horn. I love the garland here with the little purple flowers. This was kind of a pain in the butt here, but when you have to cut a hole into perforated paper, you have to like cut a gap here. Don't use your embroidery scissors. You need to use other scissors that are meant for paper, just so you don't mess up your embroidery scissors. But, you know, kind of dig your scissors into a hole and cut what you can, and then eventually you'll be able to cut out the hole big enough. So do the stitching first, then cut the hole, just so you know where you're going. Yeah, just made it difficult to finish is what it did. I had to cut this stupid thing, but the finished product is really nice. Now the harp, this was another one, did all the stitching here and then had to cut the hole. And then after you've done that, you have to attach lengths of Kreinik to make the strings. And oh my goodness, it looks so good. The tricky part in adding the Kreinik here was that you've actually got stitches up here of Kreinik and then it carries down. And so what I had to do was to get these strings here to be absolutely as tight as I could without bending the paper. So that was a tricky part, but I feel like I achieved it. I feel like I have a good finished product here and I really love this. I love the whole series, but I would say, I think these are my favorites. So if you're interested in this series, the Holiday Harmony series is what it's called. I do think these are still available, and there is a drum as well. Beautiful. These 5 little snowmen are from a Snow Charmer series. So if you look up Mill Hill Snow Charmer, you'll find, I don't know, 8 or 10 of these things. I have done 5. And this one I've done twice, actually. This is Mitten Snow Charmer. Oh, come on. There we go. Very cute. Again, stitch the mittens separately, cut them out, stitch them on here, and made a little hanger to make it look like he's holding his mittens. And the hat is stitched separately as well. And then you do some turkey stitch for the scarf end. Very cute. But also really fun to put these bugle beads on for their arms. So cute. This is GINGERMAN Snow Charmer. Okay, this little gingerbread man, his eyeballs never stay where you put them. But he's very cute, and I like the overall piece. Okay, this is Star Snow Charmer. The original piece actually has a red and green scarf, and I stitched that. I never finished it off. I never fully finished it. And then there was a call last year to gift Christmas ornaments to a woman who had lost her home in a fire. And so I was like, I've got the thing. So I took that Snow Charmer ornament, finally fully finished it, and mailed it off. So then I was like, well, I need one too. And I have this one. And instead of making a green and red scarf, I made a red and burgundy scarf. And I really like the tone-on-tone look. But so cute. Again, you stitch the stars separately and the hat separately, and you stick them on. Yeah. The important thing to remember when you're stitching the head is the beads on the head of the snowman do not go all the way around. And that way your hat can sit pretty flush against the piece. Yeah, very cute. Okay, this is Stocking Snow Charmer. This one would be a good, good opportunity to choose different colors if you wanted to customize it for someone. I do believe I stitched it with the included colors, but if you're not into jewel tones, if you want something a little bit brighter or you want to do pastels or something, you can do that. Again, so cute. And then this one is the Wreath Snow Charmer. So cute. That hole was such a pain. I remember that was a pain, but so cute. I love these pieces. Yeah. So those are all of the Mill Hill ornaments that I have completed. As I say, I have more magnets on the fridge, but I don't need to get those down to show you guys. But I wanted to at least show you all of these different ornaments. There are so many more that I have not stitched, or I don't even have the kits for. But let me show you a couple more Santa trilogies that I have and that I'm really looking forward to stitching. This series came out in 2020. This is the Antarctic Santas. They would go very well with my Arctic Circle Santas. This is Leopard Seal. You can see we've got a leopard seal and a little baby. This is Penguin Santa. And this is Albatross Santa. So cute. Look how big that bird is though. Very cute. And then these came out in 2021. This is the Christmas Day Santas. I really like this series because it looks so traditional. I mean, everything is red and green, and you've got the little kitty and the puppy. This is Christmas Memories, Christmas Morning, and Christmas Giving. So it kind of gets you through, takes you through Christmas Day, right? This is when Santa wakes up and he's having, is that a donut or is that a cookie? If you had cookies for breakfast, I have, it's wonderful. And then you do your Christmas wrapping and your giving and your sharing, and then you have turkey dinner on Christmas night. Yeah, very cute. I love that little doggy. Now, see how they cut that out? I don't think I'm gonna do that. I think I'll just leave that. Help stabilize the puppy there. Very cute. But again, it comes with everything you need, so you can see the larger piece of perforated paper. You're not gonna need all this if you stitch one of these Santas. I usually start probably 8 or 10 stitches in from the corner, maybe an inch in. I want to be able to grip it like this and then stitch here. I don't want to have to try to stabilize the perforated paper as I'm stitching in the middle. So the closer I can stitch to the edge, the better. And also, if it's kind of a skinny piece, then you might end up with a nice chunk of perforated paper left over. But that's not as important now that I know that I can just buy perforated paper whenever I want. So again, it comes with the floss, beads, even the needles, and the instructions. Okay. And these are, as of right now, end of 2025, those are less than $20 a piece. I think they're running about 16 bucks right now. Another Mill Hill kit that you can get also comes in a package this size are these Christmas Village pieces. I have a lot of Christmas Village kits, but I have only stitched 2. I stitched 2 and then I was starting to stitch on linen and became obsessed with everything you can stitch on linen, and these sort of got abandoned. So my idea was to stitch an entire Christmas Village and then have them framed all together like I did with my regular Village, where I have 3 rows of 3. I have 9 framed together. But because I stitched 2 and then just kind of gave up on the series, even though I still have the kits, I decided to just frame these in Mill Hill frames. You can buy these frames depending on where you're ordering them from. They run anywhere from $20 to $30, and they come in, I don't know, a couple dozen colors or something. So this is Mill Hill Christmas Village Cobbler. And again, they come with floss and beads, and they also come with a little ceramic button. But very cute. And then all I do is just mount it in the back. It comes with this kind of cardboardy bit, and then I nailed these pieces in here. There is a hole in the bottom, comes with a peg, so you can either hang it or you can use the peg to display it and it will stand up by itself. So easy peasy. Yeah. All right, well, I think I've talked enough about Mill Hill kits. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave comments, questions, requests, whatever it may be, in the drop-down box below. I will also put in that drop-down box the name of every one of these kits that I have shown, so that if you missed it while I was talking, you can just find it there. But again, you can also find me on Instagram at @StitchStitchBead. I will also leave my email address in the drop-down box if you prefer to contact me that way. But thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you guys to break out whatever Mill Hill kit has been hiding in your stash for years, or to maybe go pick one up from your local needle workshop. But thank you so much again, and until next time, happy stitching.